And it was an unfamiliar feeling. Not that I didn't know what safety was, but I don't think I had actually felt it before, and I didn't realize it until I came here. And I'm around nothing but black people, right? But I didn't feel like somebody was trying to take something from me. I didn't feel like people wanted something from me. I feel like I could let my armor down, and I can just walk in peace. So I'm eternally grateful for God and for that experience, because I've been to all different places around the world, and none have given me that feeling that God has given.
Because you're at home.
So I want to thank you.
Mommy said you're home.
My brother, thank you, sister. I appreciate it. My brother said introduce myself. Check one, check two, there we go. There we go, there we go. So we're going to have to choose one of the sisters. So I go by 19 Keys. 19 Keys first came by as a quote from a man named Matthew Muhammad. And this was a quote in the early 1900s. He said there's 19 million original people. And he said there's 17 million original people and there's 2 million Indians. And he was talking about population at the time in America, North America. And he said there's 19 million well-oiled keys to unlocking those rusty locked minds. And keys is interchangeable for knowledge, for wisdom, for enlightenment, so that the people can never be oppressed or colonized again. And so I took on the moniker to be someone that could unlock the minds of our people. And I decided that I want to become 19 keys in the world that can be utilized as a global force for enlightenment. And ever since that moment that I've taken on that journey, I've been able to do that across the planet Earth. I'm from Oakland, California, where I've seen black men with power. Right? I've seen black men with their own schools, their own systems, their own health institutions. Also seen those black men fail at the same time. I didn't read about revolution or activism in a book. It was just how I grew up. The brothers that I grew around, they were stone cold revolutionaries, gangsters, killers, however you want to put it. But they were the type of men that controlled their neighborhood. They controlled the economy around themselves. So for me, it was normal that black men take a position of power, a position of leadership, a position of authority, right? A position of creating our own economy and having financial sovereignty. And so when I entered into what is now the social media space, some people were like, where do you come from? Because they didn't know that we had our own thing going on in Oakland, California. They don't know anything outside the Black Panthers for the most part. And so I entered this sphere thinking that what I was doing would just be widely accepted as something you would want to see every black man do, because I also had cases. I also have been into the troubles that you go through. I've been into every situation that a black man can go through in America down here. And so I'm able to have this understanding and this empathy for our people that most people don't. Because people always ask me, why do you care? And some days I wrestle with God on that question as well. And these Negroes be tripping me out sometimes. I say the very people you try to help be the ones that try to hurt you. And so if you're not doing it for the right reasons, you'll give up very easily. And I believe that the right reasons is so that we have a future where we're free. And I mean truly free. Because we have to free ourselves from their way of thinking. We have to free ourselves from their way of eating. We have to free ourselves from their way of being. And even those who think they're free, they've only experienced the level of freedom that their cage allowed them to. They've only experienced the level of freedom that their beliefs allowed them to. They haven't experienced true freedom, where the world reflects who you are. The world has to bend to your will. When you look outside, everything is created, right, from your imagination. That's true freedom. And until we get there, I'm going to keep fighting. That's who I am. 19
All right.
So, if anybody asks you who's 19 Keys, make sure you can communicate with that same level of clarity, that same level of enthusiasm, and that same level of energy. Now, one of the things he said is, when you enter the social media sphere and space, people said, where did you come from? And one of the things I know about my people is what we know for sure, is that we all came from somewhere, but we always ask that question. Where did you come from? Right? Because we connected to spirit. There was a meme one time when we say, black people are the most spiritual people in the world. If a snake crawls in here right now, somebody's going to say, who sent you? And most of the time we feel that when the person or the thing that's in front of you invokes some type of energy. So I want to say I appreciate the energy that you invoke. We appreciate that energy. We appreciate the feeling. So now we know who 19 Keys is. I want to dive right in. This is your second time in God.
Yes, sir.
You felt a certain level of safety when you came here, right? And it brought you back. What do you think is stopping, or what do you think is preventing those of us who see what's happening in the world from making a move to at least visit the African continent? Now I know I'm gonna drop it.
No, it's a relevant question. We don't control the media, which controls our attitude. Our attitude is our disposition towards things. Before you meet somebody can say something about you, right? They say something about Keys, and now you don't like it, but you never met them, you never had an experience. But they're controlling your attitude, right? Because we don't own the media, and we haven't controlled the media, they're controlling our perception of each other. They're controlling the attitude that we have about Africa. Even though people who've never experienced it before, sometimes they can take on someone who gives it a negative meaning, right? Then you can be influenced by somebody like yourself who gives it a positive spin. There's a narrative warfare, right? Controlling the perception, the belief through stories and storytelling. And so, I don't believe, number one, there's been enough investment from the continent itself, right, in the narrative campaign of Africa.
Hold on. So we just went a layer. If you're not familiar, we went a layer. I want you to say that one more time.
Yes.
We went a layer. Say it one more time.
So we're talking about narrative warfare. There are those who exist on the continent who have a lot of wealth. And sometimes they're so comfortable in their wealth that they don't want things to change too much. So therefore, they won't use their wealth to create change that will make them uncomfortable. So even though they can utilize the resources that they have to empower those to create the content that raises and expands the idea of what Africa is, to combat the narratives that we receive across the planet about the continent, they're not spending and putting capital, right, budget, infrastructure into that. So therefore, there's not enough investment from the continent itself to change the narrative about Africa.
So that's what we call a two-way street. That's what we call a two-way street, because oftentimes the conversation about the diaspora is really about what the diaspora, those of us of African descent around the world, can do for the continent. But we rarely hear a conversation about what. And I know my sister Ismira is over there smiling right now. We never really hear a conversation about what the continent's responsibility is to us in the diaspora. So that's a very solid point. So we just went down the layer. So with that, not only with around investment, I want to ask you a question about reparations. So I had mixed emotions the first time I saw continental African presidents asking for reparations. I'm just being honest. I haven't landed on how I feel yet. My emotions are still mixed, but I had mixed emotions, right? But I understand that there are two sides to the colonization coin. We will never know what it feels like to be colonized on your own land, and you're walking on the same land that your great-great-great-great-great-grandfather walked on, but you speak in another man's tongue. You looking at a church that was built over your traditional shrine. We will never know what that feels like, those of us from the U.S. And in the U.S. and continental Africa will never know what it feels like to be shackled, and to be chattel slavery. But what I would like for you to talk about, and what I would like for you to expound upon with regards to reparations, is how do you feel, number one, about reparations in general, and number two, about African countries demanding and beginning to ask for reparations for what happened to the continent.
Well, when something is broken, it needs to be repaired. And that's what reparations is, right? It's the act to repair something. I think there's the mental part of that, of us realizing that regardless of whether you get reparations or not, it is your job to repair yourself. And consciousness, right, is the process of repairing, giving one their identity, their full sense of self back. Sometimes we come to the continent like lost puppies, looking for ourselves. Therefore, allowing somebody to guide you or misguide you in a right or wrong direction, and so many of us get taken advantage of, right? Because you're romanticizing the idea of the return, but you have not returned to yourself first, right? And so if you go somewhere not knowing yourself, then anybody can sell you an identity, connected to a scam, connected to a scheme, and now you're disappointed because you had all these expectations. And so when anywhere I leave across the planet Earth, I'm bringing my full self when I go somewhere. I'm not looking for myself. I'm not going somewhere lost, right? Because that happens even at home. You have people talking about, I'm going to go find my purpose. Your purpose lies within your identity, right? It lies in your gifts that you bring out, that you inherit, your skills, your talent. It lies in your bloodline. It lies in the mission that is required in the time in which you are living and what you can contribute. And so, as we talk about reparations from a global standpoint, we know that there's a two-way street. There is the selling of the Africans, right, to the colonizers, to the devils, right, all across the planet Earth. Then there is the monies that is owed not just by those who sold us, by the Dutch trading system, right, by the Jewish owners of the ships, by the American slave owners, by the institutions that profited all those years that built their empire. There's a lot of people that owe you when you go around collecting for your bill money, right? And so black people all across the planet Earth feel like we owe because everybody is benefiting from what was stolen from us. But there's also the standpoint, because I can't really speak from the perspective on this side. I can only really truly speak from the perspective from our side, from North America. Our people will always be owed justly. And we will never give up what's owed to us, no matter what we get on our own. Because what you owe us is the repairment that you're doing to your own humanity, right? That your story can never be changed, and we can never do business and operate with you. That's like if your family stole everything from my family, but me and you personally don't have a problem. We doing business, but there will always be this thing between us, right? And so if you ever become a person that wants to do the righteous thing, then you will make repairment so we can start over and we can build. And so until the colonizers, until the devils, until the slave traders make that wrong right, we will always have a problem, right? And so we didn't get out of slavery because they grew a consciousness. We got out of slavery because we fought. You understand me? And we went to war, and they had to join on to a war that was already occurring, right? Nobody ever gave us anything. We always fought for everything. So when they try to then take credit for our progress as if they don't owe us, we did that despite what you did to us. So anybody that feels guilty for the participation of the trading of slaves, and not only the trading of slaves, what happened after slavery, right? We want all ours for everything because you have yours in a time where it's the hardest to get an asset, in a time where quality of living is eroding, and now they want to replace the human labor force with artificial intelligence and robots, and now you get to start 1,000,000 miles ahead and telling us to catch up. No. We should be dissatisfied, and you see the people all across the planet Earth in Nepal, in Madagascar, in Mexico. The young people are rising up because there's no jobs, there's no opportunity. So the violence is skyrocketing because they're doing the one thing that any people should do when they don't have opportunity. You have to take it. You have to make it. Those who benefit from you being in your position will never benefit from you being out of that position. So there will be no retribution that is given to them unless you force it. So when we're talking about the conversation of reparations, it is a conversation that we either going to force to make happen, but if we are relying on the moral compass, right, of those who did the damage in the first place, we're going to be waiting forever.
Tell the truth. Tell the truth.
Oh, man, listen. Come on, you can clap. Listen, just stop us when we stop. When we start telling lies, get up and walk out. Until then. So, I mean, I could go so many places from where you just went right there about reparations.
I don't want to cut you off.
Come on, come back, come on.
Reparations today, because I just did a tour across the planet Earth, right, called Save Yourself. And it's very fitting for the time because when you give somebody the ability to save themselves, you allow them to recognize themselves as a savior, the one who has the ability to do it in the first place. And so when we're looking for reparations today, you first start with your own power. What do you have the power to do? The most dangerous thing on the planet Earth today is where your attention goes, right? And so the way they're keeping us in mental bondage today and shackled today is that our attentions are slaves to their mechanisms. And so in a time where the continent should be the #1 leader when it comes to AI, it should be the #1 leader when it comes to media, it should be the #1 refiner of the resources that are extracted from the continent. If we can't give ourselves repairment, what makes us think that somebody else will do? And we are all born in this time that we're living in. That's what connects us all, even deeper than skin color. Right? Is that we're all living in the same time. And what is that time? It is a time of a great transition. But if we miss the cycle, well, one power is going out, and all they're trying to figure out, okay, what is our next levels of power? What is the next thing that we build? If you're distracted when the cycle happens, similar to if a farmer is distracted, he can't reap the benefits of the harvest. So if we do not invest now in ourselves, in our capabilities, in our skills, in mastering the machines, in mastering the tools, in mastering institution building, in mastering time, the greatest thing that they have above us, I would say, is their ability to master time. Joseph L. White, African psychologist known as the godfather of black psychology, he said there is not many words in the African language for near future or far in the future. Because we look at time as cyclical, that every step that you take, right, is now being imprinted into the past of a memory, that there is no time unless you move, which is why black people are always not on time. You know what I'm saying? Hey, when I move, that's time. But see, it's different when you have other people who look at time as a territory. They look at time as something to be conquered. And they create an institution that lasts over time. So we have a temporal blindness, a mental myopia. A mental myopia is a stigma in the mind similar to a stigma in the eyes. That if the future, right, does not feel present, then we do not act. It is a cognitive issue. It is not a will issue. We know what to do, but can't get ourselves to do what we know. There's a performance issue in the diaspora. And until we can change and recorrect our relationship with time to become conquerors of time, to harmonize with time, it will always have that over us. So you must recognize the time that you're living in, understand it, refresh yourself, update yourself to the current time reality. Then you can repair your situation. Then you can win. And somebody who understands that is that brother Captain Trayor.
All right, yes he does.
Let's go. Earlier, before we started, I mentioned to you about how your blessing could be sitting next to you. And all you got to do is say hello. And I want to remind you that, of that and use that to underscore my brother's point about time. Because we are the only ones who tell our children they have time. We are the only ones who raise our children to be and to do whatever it is they want to do and feel they can do and wonder why we're behind. Somebody asked me about the Chinese. I said, what you have to realize is the Chinese send their children to school to manage what they started when they died. There is no choice. I need you all to become engineers because we've started to do the roads in Kenya. It is going to take us 250 years to do the roads from Kenya to South Africa. So when you go to college, you got to figure out how to get us some quick drying asphalt and come back and take over. Thank you, my brother. Time. So with that, I have a saying that I started saying earlier this year. That is, we are in 2025. In 2025, almost over already. Shouts out to everybody born in 1975. Real ready. We turned 50 this year. Real ready. I'm going to turn 50. But we are in the last year of the first quarter of the current century. To your point about time. And if, I'm not going to do it for you, but you can do it. If you look in history at the first quarter of every century, you will find signposts for everything that happened in the next 3 quarters of that century. Now, we were all born in our own time, but I want you to talk a little bit with your understanding of history, with your understanding of technology. I want you to talk a little bit more about now, right? Yeah. About right now. That I've never heard I've never heard anybody say that the most important thing about all of us in terms of our relation is that we were born and here at the same time. That to me is real heavy. That to me is real heavy. But I want you to talk about the time we're in now, the end of the last year of the first quarter of this century. What is special? What is powerful about right now?
You know, as I study time, I study so many different things. Right? Cyclical time, right? A lot of people are caught up in the news cycle, right? And the news cycle will blind you from time, right? Because it keeps you in this emergency loop. It keeps you thinking negative about things. And so you get this distorted world view of reality and what's happening. It's very distracting. But there's something in the news right now that I think is interesting. And it's the three-eyed atlas, right? The 3 is a representative of it being the 3rd, right, anomaly that we found, right, coming into our solar system. And it being from a different solar system. So it's an interstellar event that has happened, right? And the ancient peoples, going back to like the Dogon, right, they had the ability to understand the star systems, right? When you go to Native American history, the indigenous people talked about, right, the blink of cheetah. We talked about a time when the 5th world ends. And so all ancient original people always had in harmony with time. In ancient Kemet, the only way they were able to build agriculture is because they understood, right, that land, that black land, how to make it fertile. When the tides would come in, how the moon affected it. They understood seasons and time, and they lived in harmony, which is why they wasn't tripping. Because if you have an understanding, right, of cyclical time, then you don't have to force anything, right? And so, in a way, that's why we were always so comfortable. Because we never felt like we had to force anything because we understand we had a relationship with time itself. But at some point in time, we've lost our connection to the cosmos, right? Whether you were Muslim, whether you were spiritual, right? Whether you were Christian, it was always connected cosmically. And that cosmic part is now disconnected from most religious systems on the planet Earth, right? I'm always wearing the sun, moon, and stars to remind me of that cosmic time. Because as men, right, our bodies are in tune more with the solar. right? We have what we call SCN, the suprachiasmatic nucleus in our brain that connects when you're traveling. If you wake up with the sun the next day, you activate a part of your system. It's the allostasis system where your interior of your body is always shifting to create balance within itself, right? It's not homeostasis waiting for things to return to normal. It's your internal systems making you feel normal as it's shifting things as necessary. And so when you wake up with the sun and you sun gaze, it reprograms you through light, right? And it gets you back in tune with a circadian rhythm. So now you're back into God's time, right? If you go back into the early 1500s, they created the clock. They put us on their clock system, then they put us on a 1260 frequency. They took us out of time, right? It used to be 13 months. So we was operating with what? The cycle. The sisters have a cycle. So therefore, no matter what, a woman is always reminded of time because of her body, right? A man should be reminded of time throughout the day because his hormones shift throughout the day. And they said testosterone is at a 50-year low, at least in America. I'm not sure what y'all getting at out here. You know what I'm talking about? But y'all babies, so
Overtime.
I think it might be good.
Overtime. Some of y'all like leave here pregnant just for this.
So we talking about today, looking at something that's happening in the cosmos is something that our ancestors would have read to as well. They would have all written it down. It would have been a planetary event that the collective consciousness all witnessed. They would have written it down in scribes on walls, and they would have understood that we're entering into a new time, right? We're entering into a new shift. And so because we have so much light pollution, we're disconnected from the cosmos because we're not looking up. We're not having star watching parties and things of that nature because we're looking at what man created, right? We're completely disconnected from cosmic time. So therefore, we don't know how to have this overview. And I'll give you an example. Bitcoin is down to like $89 right now. Now, that's an easy, predictable thing in my perspective, even with the market being down. Why? Is because when you track solar cycles, it's actually one of the greatest markers to understand when you're going to have financial crisis. A solar cycle is the sun goes through repetition every 11 years, right? And it gets to a point where it has CME, that's coronal mass ejection. That's when you see the aurora borealis. That's literally saying that you're getting more magnetic energy interference on Earth. Right now, ancient peoples understood that, so you might fast during that time. Right? You might meditate more because you have understood that it disrupts your heart barriers, it disrupts your mood, it disrupts things within the body. So you understand that the cosmos is sending you a signal of what to do. Oh, similar to, you got your woman and she on her cycle, you know that you might have to speak a little more politely that time. Right? So that's because you have an awareness of the cycle. But when you don't know, the universe is on this period. You know what I mean? Putting you on your period. And now you're having arguments amongst each other. There's more social unrest during these times. There's technological disruption. We just had a disruption to where the internet went out. There was an outage. So now when it affects the mood of the people, it affects how they feel about the market, right? Which then creates a shift because the sentiment changes. So if you're looking at that, and all the great hedge fund managers do, right? They understand that there's technological shifts that happen when these things occur. And we're now in the point in time at solar cycle 11 to where it is at its peak. And now they're saying it's going to remain for at least another 10 years. So we're not going to stop going through shifts and changes. That's why you have to now prepare for the time that you're living in. We're living in time where things feel like they speeded up, don't they? There was a time when we was begging for the future. Can't wait till you get flying cars and jetpacks. Now you want things to slow down because it feels like time is ahead of you and you're trying to catch up to time. So as a futurist, what we do is we're always positioning ourselves ahead of time so that you can feel the future as if it's happening now. So what's going on, right? You got Elon Musk pulling out all his satellites over here to give internet to the continent. A blessing, right? But in disguise, you have to understand that now somebody controls your internet. Right? And now it is a game of the global elites trying to connect, right? And create and control and privatize all assets so that they are not commons that are owned by Africa. Right? It is a time where on the internet they're practicing cognitive warfare, where they're not just controlling what you think, they control how you think, which controls what you think. So now they don't care if you have a different perspective on something, because they're controlling your identity through bots, through algorithms, through narrative storytelling. And this is coming from the military, right? That all peoples across the planet Earth and Africa don't have any digital borders closed, like North Korea, like China, like Russia. So you might be raising a son or a daughter not knowing that they're being taken down a rabbit hole, stealing their identity, and then they're coming back to you weird as hell, right? And so if you don't have the mental literacy during this time, it's dangerous to even be online. Because you don't understand when something is shaping your consciousness, rewiring and using your own neuroplasticity against you. But years ago, it was okay maybe to give your child a phone. But you have to understand we're in a new time. Right? Now they have brain-to-brain interface, ways where they can control what you think, right? Going into the very inception of your thoughts. So as we're utilizing these machines, we're in an age of illusion to where we don't know what's real. Why? Because anybody can create anything with AI. So now you can't trust yourself, which has been a skill set that we've used. Photo has always been verifiable proof. Now we can't trust our own eyes. So that means businesses will shift. People are trying to disconnect from being online as much, and they're looking to have businesses that connect people, right? Businesses are going to change from trying to steal attention to how can I actually protect your attention. So now you see something like Nike that dropped a shoe called Mind OS, to where the shoe literally has embedded in it to where it's hitting your foot in a particular area that's sending the signal to your brain to focus as you walk. Because now they understand that we're in a cognitive renaissance. That time is no longer the most valuable asset cognition is. Because if you can't think, then what good is all the time in the world? And I know everybody here has faced with scrolling too much, constantly looking for novelty. So therefore you will write something down, but your intentions are never met because your attention is not being controlled, so you can't do the actions. Right? And so we are in a time where you can tell black people everything. I give you all the business secrets, hacks, AI workflows, but will you actually leave here and execute? So when I travel around the world, I have to teach you that this is a time where cognition itself is going to be shifting different classes. There's a thinking class of people, right? Then there's the people that stuck scrolling all day. And so now there's a separation with people who have clarity, people who have focus, and people who are distracted and don't know what to do next. It's not that you're not smart. No, you're intelligent. It's not that you're not disciplined. It's that you see discipline as something other than a system. Right? And so we have to become a systematic people. We have to protect our attention. And we have to align them with our intentions so that we can meet action. We have to have accountability groups during this time. Man, I was just downloaded Gemini 3, the new AI. And I'm thinking right now, when do I have time to allocate cognition towards that? Because if I do, and I can be focused for a long enough period of time, I can build something that will pay me forever. This will not always be the opportunity. Everybody's businesses should be increased with AI in the workflow. You should understand agentic AI. You cannot afford to be behind. People build their wealth by understanding the times and building businesses of that time. That's how they get ahead of everybody else. So when it looks like we coming online, it looks like we finally get a little money, they say, y'all don't understand the time we live. We about to accelerate this thing 100 times. So we can't afford to be lost. So this is the time of the cognitive renaissance where you have coffee shops that come back so you can have intellectual discussions about the cosmos, about business, about entrepreneurship, similar to the ancient Moors, similar to ancient European, when that coffee being left Africa, right, coming out of Java. They understood that it allowed them to create renaissances and revolutions. Why? Because they were able to think for longer periods of time. They were able to jump off their regular cycle, and now their brain was able to have more attention span. So now they're questioning things. They sitting with brothers and they're like, wait a minute, I don't think I want to, why we got to do this? They sitting there cognitive, right, performing, and now it actually, every time that coffee came, it had a revolution, it had a renaissance. So we created Supermind because I believe you literally need a Supermind during this time. Right? We got mushroom in the coffee because it ain't enough. I don't know if y'all know in America they got quarter zips and they got the green matcha going on. You understand me? Now I ain't mad at the quarter zips, but they need Supermind mushroom coffee. You understand me? Because the young people, if you can expand their consciousness, and they won't become enough to survive in the world. Definitely not enough to thrive in the world. And there's going to be some taking quarters, but understand, you gotta have your money.